Well, we thought that he would name a pretty strong side today. Many people expecting it to be his test side, looking ahead to the first test in Brisbane. And you'd have to say it looks to be pretty close. He's made 14 changes. The only player to keep his place, Blair Kinghorn, who moves from the wing to fullback. But let's take you through that team now. And we'll start with the front row. Ellis Genge, Dan Sheehan, Tyke Furlong, captain Mara Itoje is joined by Joe McCarthy. You've got Ollie Chesham, Tom Curry, and at 8 it is Jack Conan. Now Jameson Gibson-Park pairs up with Finn Russell. On the wing you've got James Lowe, Tommy Freeman, the centre partnership of Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose, and it is Blair Kinghorn at 15. I'll just run you through the replacements. Ronan Kelleher, Andrew Porter, Will Stewart, Josh van der Fleer, Henry Pollock, Alex Mitchell, Marcus Smith and Mac Hansen, who used to play for the Brumbies. This here in Canberra, his hometown, he will wear the number 23 shirt. Now, alongside me is Dan Bigger, and we're going to pick through this team for you. I mentioned it in the introduction there. We thought he would name a pretty strong side for the Brumbies. Do you reckon this is his test team?
It looks to me, Ellie, like it's very test teamy, if that makes sense. I think you look at the combinations, you look at the flexibility that the team gives you. Look at, say, a Tommy Freeman playing, gives you the ability to move him to fullback, to move him to wing, etc. Ollie Chesham at 6 allows you to pick 2 back rowers on the bench. So I just think it looks, if someone said to me, that's the team for the first test in Brisbane in 10 days' time, or 12 days' time, I'd believe it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way you look at it. I think the combination of the Irish centres, and also you look at it, there's 12 out of the 23 are Irish in that matchday squad.
People he knows and trusts.
People he knows and trusts. And when it comes to big games and, you know, when there's a bit of, I wouldn't say pressure that's been on Andy Farrell this week, but there's been a lot of external noise. Sometimes it's nice to go back to what's tried and tested and what he's been working with for the last sort of number of years, and just gives him that little bit of confidence that things are going to be okay Wednesday night against the Brumbies and leading into the first test.
The Brumbies, many people are expecting them to be the toughest opposition in terms of these run-ups, finishing 3rd in Super Rugby. Certainly expected to be a tougher test than the Waratahs.
Yeah, I was surprised at the Waratahs. I thought the Waratahs actually showed a bit of a blueprint on how to stop the Lions in terms of the line speed, keeping them in the middle of the park and not giving them much time on the ball to get their game going. But you'd expect Wednesday to be another step up. You'd expect them to maybe offer a little bit more in attack. Obviously, Stephen Larkham, one of the game's greats, heading that up there and being in charge. You'd expect he'll have some inside knowledge and just knowing how to sort of play these big games and play these sort of touring teams. So I think you'd expect the Brumbies to put up probably the sternest opposition in terms of from the Super Rugby teams. And I think when you look at that team that the Lions have picked, I think they're probably going to need to be at their best on Wednesday night to get a result.
Is it a bit of a balancing act for Andy Farrell? Because he wants to try out combinations and he wants to put up a good fight in these warm-up games, but equally he's going to want to hold something back and not going to want to show his hand too early.
The thing with Lions tours is what you see on the pitch on a Wednesday night or a Saturday night isn't always what's going on in training or in between or in meetings in the team hotel. It's very much, okay, well, for the Waratahs game we want to show this or we want to practice this. But all the time in training there's always that big goal of that first test, second test, third test, and they'll be looking at certain things. And again, you look at the combinations that he's picked and you look at the people who he knows and trusts and worked with for a long time. There's going to be an understanding from what Andy wants from his players and coaches alike. So I just think that, yes, we've seen lots of good things from the Lions so far on the tour, but I'd expect them to be holding a few things back and working on those things behind closed doors, not showing them on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Okay, Jamie, I know in the studio, is a big Lions fan, aren't you?
I am indeed, Ellie. I want you to ask Dan a question for me, because what's been bothering me is, traditionally on Lions tours, you've had a midweek team and then the test team. Because this is like a test team being played in midweek, the Lions have got another 2 tour games before the first test. How does Andy Farrell keep these first choice players ticking over until the first test, which is still a week and a half away?
Jamie's question there, I'll just relay to you because Dan didn't hear that, which is, you've then still got a bit of time until the first test. If this is his test team, how does he keep those guys ticking over with still a while to go?
Well, it gives him 10 days. If you think this is, the majority of this team are going to play next Saturday in Brisbane, you think that they're going to be almost sort of planning from the minute this game ends, Wednesday evening. It'll be recovery, obviously helping the team prepare for the invitational team on Saturday. But I just think all of a sudden the focus will switch and it'll come to the video analysis will be Australia. The recovery will be tailored to those boys, slightly different to boys who are going to play Saturday. So I think that's the key thing is sort of managing, almost not dividing the group, but almost managing certain players a little bit different. And also you look at someone like a Jameson Gibson-Park, who's been his fitness has been under question a little bit coming into the tour. You probably think, right, get him sort of 60 minutes under his belt again Wednesday, get him to put his feet up for 10 days,
tuck him away,
wrap him up in cotton wool, himself and Finn Russell and maybe one or two others, and make sure they come into test week on Monday absolutely ready to go. So because they haven't had an actual, I suppose, a classic test week on tour so far. It's been Wednesday, Saturday, travel, train, etc. So it'd be great for them those boys to have had a 4 or 5 days recovery before they start their test week.
Well, there is, of course, another game to go. That is on Saturday in Adelaide. And there is only one player left who would not have featured so far. That is Owen Farrell. Andy Farrell, when we spoke to him post-match after they beat the Waratahs, I did ask him, would Owen feature on Wednesday? He said no, he felt that would be too soon, jet lag, etc. But you'd think that come Saturday we'll see him on the pitch in Adelaide, wouldn't you?
You would have thought so, but, Owen's sort of experience and everything that everyone keeps telling us about Owen, it shouldn't be a problem for him, jet lag and all these things. He's been on tours before, so look, you'd expect him if Andy made the point in this press conference that Owen's here to be in contention for every game. So
not here to make up the numbers.
He said that there's no point in being here otherwise. So you'd expect that he would have to have some minutes under his belt, and I'd say quite a few minutes, because he hasn't played for 2 months, international rugby for 2 years. You'd expect him that he'd need 70, 75 minutes, I'd say, under his belt.
Time.
And so it's interesting. It's really interesting, the dynamic in the squad since Owen's arrival. But I think the main point, I think he'll want to see, forget about Saturday for the minute. I think, like we've mentioned, this is likely to be his test team, and he'll want to see some combinations, and he'll want to see a little bit more ball retention. I think that's been the key thing, isn't it? We've all said that the Lions have played some really good rugby on tour, but where they have struggled is handling errors and turning the ball over. So I think that'll be a real focus, because you don't get away with it in big test matches.